Are you surprised at how quickly demand maybe is starting to come back, particularly in the United States?
Not fully surprised, because we are making surveys asking passengers about their concern, their what they want, and we have always seen that the appetite to fly is still there, even if they want to wait for some days or weeks before taking a new flight or their first new flight. But there is still a strong appetite to fly. So we are not fully surprised.
Okay. Is there a difference between how you think demand will come back in the United States and how demand will come back in Europe? Do you expect Europe to be more muted?
No, the main obstacle now that we see for the to restart the air transport industry are the restrictions that are put by governments on flights, or border closures, or quarantine measures. All these measures, they restrict, and limit, the restart for flying. As soon as you reopen borders, you lift restrictions, or you do not impose, quarantine measures, you will see the flights and coming back, passengers, flying again, and airlines restarting strongly. So it is perhaps one of the reasons why it could be slightly slower in Europe, in which it's more fragmented, than in the U.S., in which it's a unified country with no internal borders.
You say slightly slower. Do you mean slightly slower, or do you mean significantly slower?
I mean slightly slower, but it is a bit early, to give you that kind of precision. Sorry for that, but we are still. It's a moving situation, and fast moving.
What kind of capacity do airlines need to see to start actually seeing free cash flow and give them some real liquidity breathing room?
That is a question that heavily depends on the cost reduction plan that they will put in place, because in our estimate, we think that first domestic market will restart, then regional/continental, such as North America or Europe or Asia Pacific, then intercontinental. But at the end of the year, we should reach a traffic that would be between 50 to 60% of the 2019 volumes. So it is still a weak figure, and if at this level the airlines can generate cash and earn money, it means that they will have to reduce their cost structure significantly by the end of the year. So it will heavily depend on the level of the plan they will implement and the speed of implementation they will decide.
I was really struck by the bing bong back and forth between the U.S. and China over will flights be allowed in from the other countries as sort of a proxy for the trade war. Do you see airlines being drawn into this now?
We are heavily depending on government decisions all over the world, and especially in China or in the U.S. To restart our flights. And there is a mix of political element, and on that point we usually disagree to be the hostage or the victim of political game. And there are also decisions that are triggered by sanitary consideration or health considerations that could be totally legitimate. And on that point, you must be aware that one of the key success we achieved in the recent days is that the ICAO, so the International Civil Aviation Organization, has published with us a guideline to implement a health control and sanitary check process all over the world. That is the key element to unlock air transport everywhere, to have the similar process implemented everywhere. And we are urging government to do that, to implement it, and our members, to comply with these new guidelines, because it's key to restore confidence and to gather the acceptance of governments.
Okay, that's a very important point, and I think it'll be worth kind of focusing on that and seeing whether governments ultimately do that. But Alexandre, just to pick up on what Alex is talking about, do you worry that travel and aviation travel in particular could get dragged into the increasingly tense relationship between China and the United States?
It's always a concern. It's of course a concern, you know, and to be the victim of a political or commercial game or opposition between two big countries, two enormous, you know, countries that represent, you know, the number one, number two market in the world. So for us, the air transport, so we could be dragged in such an opposition, and we think that's really a pity because we are the vector of a key freedom, and we would like this freedom to be again in the hand of every individual and everybody to be able to take a flight to go wherever they want, and especially between Asia and the US or North America.
Just in terms of one final quick question from me, Alexandre, the story surrounding the bailouts is one that we're still trying to understand. And a lot of people in Europe now believe that we are looking at Air France, KLM, and Lufthansa as basically becoming state-owned organizations. How do you think, what is your perspective on how this is going to change competition? Because it's something that has obviously caused a great deal of concern within the industry. How have you seen, how do you expect to see these decisions reshaping the way that Europe operates?
You know, these bailouts, you know, they have contributed, you know, to save many airlines all over the world. You are mentioning 2 airlines in Europe. There are others in Europe. I think of at least 3 of them in 3 other countries. You have had similar plans, frankly, in Asia and in the US. The airline sector has benefited from a significant help from the US government. So we have advocated in favor of that, in favor of very strong financial support from government. In the 2 countries in Europe that you have mentioned, you have seen capital injection in the 2 main aircraft carriers, but also big loans or credit guarantees. And so it means that you will have probably an increased presence of the state in the shareholding of these 2 companies. But what could happen is very similar to what happened in the US, if you remember, with General Motors after the financial crisis. The state probably should resell its share in a reasonably limited period of time when the situation will be better. That would be good for taxpayer, especially if the share price is higher, which should be the case if the economic situation recovers and air travel starts to catch up the historic trends.